Whispers are growing louder around the paddock, suggesting that Max Verstappen could be on the verge of pulling off a shocking career move, something absolutely nobody would have predicted just a few months ago. Even though earlier reports hinted at a potential switch to Mercedes or Aston Martin if he ever decided to part ways with Red Bull, this new development feels like it's coming straight out of left field. Apparently, Max is now contemplating a sensational move, one that could be less about committing immediately and more about testing the waters for what the market might offer. But is this scenario actually plausible? And if it is, how could he end up becoming the ultimate wild card of the 2026 silly season simply by stepping away? Despite all the calming statements from Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, there's no denying that Verstappen's presence sends shockwaves through the driver market. Officially, the four-time world champion has been unwavering about his commitment to Red Bull. However, no one could have foreseen the scale of the development war that Red Bull is currently losing, a far cry from the dominant force they were just a few seasons back. Realistically, if it weren't for Max's extraordinary talent, the team might already be languishing in the midfield, or worse. According to a confidential BBC F1 report, Verstappen is seriously considering the radical idea of taking a sabbatical in 2026, spending the year surveying the landscape before choosing the best team package available for 2027. I know what you're thinking. Aston Martin and Mercedes already appear locked into their future lineups. But it's crucial to remember that those commitments were made around the 2026 regulations, and with drivers like Fernando Alonso, George Russell, and even Kimi Antonelli lacking firm contracts beyond 2025 or 2026, the situation could change dramatically once the new era of F1 kicks off. It was Andrew Benson from BBC F1 who first broke the news about this potential strategic move. He emphasized that one of the most fascinating rumors surrounding Verstappen is that he might simply sit back, watch how the new regulations unfold, and then handpick the team he believes will dominate. According to Benson, this information came unsolicited from a source extremely close to Max, a fact that makes it hard to dismiss out of hand. Sure, there's always a chance they're just stirring the pot for fun, but in F1, where smoke often means fire, why rule anything out? Meanwhile, Red Bull's CEO Oliver Mintzlaff addressed the growing uncertainty when he visited Jeddah earlier this season to tackle the team's internal struggles. Mintzlaff insisted that Max owes a significant part of his success to Red Bull and emphasized that Verstappen should not forget where he came from. "We are all deeply dissatisfied with the current situation. No one is looking the other way. I am absolutely convinced that Max will stay on the long journey he started with Red Bull. He will race for us in 2026, Mintzlaff declared. He pointed out that Verstappen's contract extends until the end of 2028 and that Max himself has often said he wants to finish his career where it all began, with Red Bull. As far as I know, nothing has changed in that regard, he added. We have gained immensely from Max. He's the best driver in the world, but he also owes a lot to Red Bull. Adding further intrigue to the situation is the external pressure mounting around Verstappen. Aston Martin, backed by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, which owns roughly 20% of the team, reportedly floated an offer worth $100 million per year over a 3-year span. Given that Aston is already paying technical mastermind Adrian Newey $33 million annually and is investing heavily in state-of-the-art wind tunnel facilities, it's clear they aren't afraid to spend big to chase success. Money alone probably won't be the decisive factor for Verstappen, but the scale and seriousness of Aston Martin's development push could make them a very tempting option. And there's another subtle but important detail: Fernando Alonso. While many had assumed that 2026 would mark the Spaniard's farewell tour, that assumption is now very much in doubt. If Alonso decides to stick around or if Aston Martin's competitiveness skyrockets under the new regulations, the entire driver market could be flipped on its head, and Verstappen could find himself at the center of it all. The Spaniard hinted that he might extend his career beyond the initial season under the new regulations, depending heavily on what Aston Martin demands and expects from him. He elaborated further, subtly leaving the door open for a potential earlier exit than many had anticipated. Fernando explained, "There were a lot of things that appealed to me last year when we sat down to discuss my contract, but beyond 2026, I honestly don't know. I'm planning to take it one season at a time." I'll gauge how I feel, how motivated I am. Right now, the motivation is sky high, but I can't promise that we'll remain for 3 or 4 more years and risk committing the team to something uncertain." He continued, "So we agreed to lock it in until the end of 2026. After that, given the great relationship I have with Lawrence and Lance, we'll sit down together, have an honest conversation, and figure out what's best for the team." Of course, if Verstappen decides to take a sabbatical, it opens a fascinating new question. Are Aston Martin and Mercedes really the only viable options for him? We've been led to believe that no other team could offer Max a competitive seat, but we may have overlooked some critical factors. Lewis Hamilton, for instance, is inching closer to 40 years old and hasn't exactly launched into the 2025 season the way he would have hoped. Apart from a sprint pole and sprint win in China, his campaign has been riddled with struggles, particularly with the car's balance, something he himself has openly admitted. Meanwhile, a wild report has surfaced suggesting that Verstappen could genuinely be in the mix for a Ferrari seat. It sounds crazy at first glance, sure. Ferrari has traditionally preferred to promote from within, and they're closely watching how their rising star Berman performs in F2. However, we're talking about a full-blown world champion here. Like it or not, Verstappen's stock is at an all-time high, and he will have the luxury of picking whichever team he feels offers the best shot at a title. At this moment, Red Bull no longer looks like the no-brainer it once was. Given Hamilton's contract situation, he's signed for 2027. A Verstappen sabbatical in 2026 could seamlessly lead to him stepping into a Ferrari seat. It may seem far-fetched, but then again, whoever imagined Hamilton would walk away from Mercedes and sign with Ferrari in the first place? And if it ever came down to choosing between an aging Hamilton and a prime Verstappen, it's hardly a tough call. We've already seen Max win titles even when driving the third-best car on the grid. If Ferrari can craft a machine with a solid operational window under the incoming regulations, picturing Verstappen in scarlet red isn't so outrageous. It's worth remembering, too, that not long ago in 2023, Max was asked if he had a dream team in Formula One. His answer was revealing. "People always ask me if there's a dream team. I know Ferrari has an incredible history and it's an amazing team to race for, but I've always said I just want to be in the fastest car." If you asked him the same question today, the answer would probably be even more blunt. Right now, all of this is just rumor and speculation. The Briton believes that a lot of the chatter circulating in the media lately lacks any real substance. Sharing his honest perspective on Max Verstappen's future with Red Bull, he commented, "There's been a lot of noise, both inside and outside the team. I think Max made his commitment very clear yesterday. Right now, our focus is on making the car faster. That's where our energy is going. Max is fully engaged in that effort. He's a dedicated part of the team, and everything else is just speculation and gossip. Fixing the car is the priority. It doesn't need to become some endless talking point." However, one major wild card in all of this is Mercedes' commitment. While Toto Wolff hasn't been shy in expressing his admiration for Verstappen, he continues to insist that Mercedes is fully committed to their current driver lineup. Still, it's hard to imagine he would stick to that same stance if Verstappen's availability suddenly became a real possibility. When asked about Mercedes' future plans, Wolff chose his words carefully. He diplomatically reinforced his support for the current pairing but stopped short of completely ruling out a link to Verstappen. He explained, "We haven't had any conversations with George yet, and when it comes to George and Kimi Antonelli, we have no doubts about our current setup as we move forward. We'll revisit those talks once the European season is underway. No pressure. Russell is performing at an exceptionally high level, exactly as we expected him to. There's absolutely nothing more we could ask of him. We have this summer window ahead, and as things stand, there's no reason to question anything." Given all of this, what's your take on the idea of Verstappen taking a sabbatical and then joining another team in 2027? More intriguingly, if he does sit out the 2026 season, do you think he might dabble in another racing series before returning to Formula One? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. And after you do, don't miss the next video that's popping up on your screen right now.